What's up, guys? Today we're going to take a look at the Dragoncall PvE rotation. First we'll take a look at the level 45 Hongmoon 1 build, then we'll break down the rotation. So, let's get started. In this rotation, our main source of damage will come from Dragoncall. So, let's take a look at the build before we get started. Now, I am making this for level 45, and I will include a Hongmoon 1 build. I'll include a Hongmoon 5 build down below. And I also show whether or not you have the Dragoncall skill book. I will say ahead of time, the Dragoncall skill book is very important for this build. I recommend getting it as soon as possible. It doesn't exactly change how the build plays, but it increases your damage by quite a bit to have it. So let's take a look at the skills. We'll start with Mantra first. We put 3 points into Mantra. This increases the focus regen of Mantra from a passive 5 to 15. Then our next skill is Bombardment. You can tier it up this way for a single target damage, but more than likely you're not going to be switching your skills during the dungeon, so you could take this one right here, and this will make it AoE damage. Next is Rupture. We tier it up 3 down this way. This will mark the target for 0.8 seconds, and it creates 1 Spectral Orb on hit, and also decreases the cooldown of Dragoncall by 3 seconds every time you use it, which is very important. Next, we have Leech. We spec it 3 down the left side. This will give us a 20% critical damage buff while Siphon is active on us. In addition to doing the normal things that Leech does, reset the cooldown of our Dragoncall and Wingstorm, making them instant cast during the duration. I like to spec the summon 2 points this way into damage. If you find that your Thrall is dying, you can swap it over here to defensive, and it will save, give it some more defense, more health. So if it's dying a lot, do that. This will do more damage, so if you spec it this way, if you find that it is staying alive, you can do that. Our most important skill, which is Soul Burn. This is an amazing party buff. This gives the other classes access to their Awakened skills along with ours. We gain Awakened Rupture. The other classes will gain their Awakened skills, and on top of that, you get a 50% critical damage buff, and move speed increase, focus, cooldown resets, all sorts of amazing stuff. So very, very, very good party buff and personal buff. So make sure you're using this one. Going down the list, I put 3 points down the left side of Soul Shackle. This is just the most damaging Soul Shackle. It's not a ton of damage. You're mainly going to use this to initiate Leech, to brand the target and follow with Leech. So this is just a little bit of extra damage down here. We put 4 points into Imprison like this. This does tons of things. Increases the damage over uses, increases damage on branded targets. It'll reset the cooldown of our Dragoncall and Wingstorm, making the next one instant immediately afterwards. You could see successfully finishing it will decrease the cooldown of Leech by 6 seconds. On crit, creates 3 additional Spectral Orbs. Tons of stuff. Very, very good skill to tier up. The main skill here we have is Dragoncall. 3 points into this one. On hit, critical chance increases for 5 seconds by 25%. Now, as I mentioned before, the Hongmoon skill book, you could still run the build without it. It's just going to feel very, very lacking compared to when you do have it. Now, what it does is, by putting 2 more points in here, it will allow us to cast Dragoncall a second time if the first Dragoncall crits, and it will be instant cast. It basically doesn't quite double your damage output, but with our hardest hitting ability, being able to hit twice every time we cast it, it really, really starts to rack up the damage. The other thing is, too, if you read, it says that on hit with Dragoncall, we decrease the cooldown of Leech by 1 second. Adding another Dragoncall in, when we crit with one, that's just another second off of our Leech cooldown, which just gets us, much quicker back into the Siphon rotation. Now, I did mention I'm level 50 on this account, so I have 2 extra skill points. So The 5 extra skill points would be the 5 you get to 50, so don't worry about those. The 2 extra skill points that I left up here, this is where you'd put them in Dragoncall, and that would be for your level 45 Hongmoon 1. But if you don't have this skill book, don't worry about it. The 2 extra points will just be put into defensive skills, which would be the next skill here. Just put the 2 points into Bastion right here, and it'll give you a little extra defensives. But like I said, those 2 points, this is where you want them to go in this Dragoncall. I put 1 point in Tetherblade. This isn't exactly necessary, but you can kind of change up the rotation a little. This just gives you another way to brand your target in case you had to use Soul Shackle for whatever reason, if something got in trouble or whatever. We've got Wingstorm. I put 2 points into it. You can put a 3rd point into it to apply target to the enemy. But with our lack of skill points at 45 and Hongmoon 1, I don't recommend putting it in quite yet. You don't really need it. I put 2 here for increased damage against branded targets. That's not really going to apply much, but on hit, Mantra and Rupture will be available for use. Decrease cooldown of Tetherblade by 2 seconds. Creates 3 Spectral Orbs on hit. Now, for the Spectral Orbs, we have Dragoncall on hit. Decreases Dragoncall cooldown by 1 second for each Spectral Orb it consumes. So, Wingstorm will create 3 when it hits, then our next Dragoncall will get reduced by an extra 3 seconds when we use it with 3 Spectral Orbs. This also has a reduced cooldown compared to the right side. The right side has a 24-second cooldown, this one has an 18-second cooldown. So, one is ice, one is dark, but you don't have to worry about that currently on the NA and EU servers. We have 1 point in Eclipse here. This is a bit of a tricky one, but basically we put 1 point into our backstep, which allows us to reset the cooldown of both our 4 and our V, Dragoncall and Wingstorm, if we resist something during the backstep. So you can try to use it to avoid damage intentionally to reset your cooldowns, which will be a damage increase for you. We talked about the Thrall. Got those. The last one is Circle of Wrath. Now, this recently got nerfed pretty hard, and now has an 18-second cooldown, and it only lasts for, it says 3 seconds, but it kind of refreshes a little bit, so it's about 5 seconds or something like that. But it used to be pretty much full uptime, pretty close, but now it's got a super long cooldown. It's not that it's bad now, it's just not as strong as it was. I still use it. We can take a look at that real quick. When you summon the pet, you'll see that he'll create a field around him. Now you'll see it lasts for a few seconds. The buff's about to run out, and the buff is gone. And we have the cooldown over here. You can see how long the cooldown is. It used to be up, nearly 100% of the time, but now it's quite a bit distance between it. So it's hard to say whether or not it's really useful, but there's not really anywhere else to put the points in terms of DPS right now, so it's good enough to take now. So, let's take a look at the actual rotation. We basically have a siphoned rotation, and then we have fillers until Leech comes back up to reapply Siphon. I'll go ahead and put the Siphon rotation up on the screen here. So basically what this is saying is, we're going to start with our 4 Dragoncall. We're going to follow with our 2 Soul Shackle, which will brand the target, allowing us to use our F, Leech. Leech will reset the cooldown of our 4 Dragoncall. We'll use Dragoncall. Then we'll use our V, Wingstorm. We'll reset both of those by using our 3 Imprison, which will cause both of them to reset, and since we'll be siphoned from Leech, they'll both be instant cast. So we'll go ahead and cast our 4 and our V again. Now remember, if you have the Dragoncall skill book, you'll be able to cast a second Dragoncall if your Dragoncall crits. It's very important. So let's take a quick look at that rotation. So that's the beginning of the Siphon rotation. Now, I don't have the skill book on this server, so as I said, you will cast Dragoncall again when it crits. My ping is kind of high, so it'll be a little rough to show the full rotation, but basically that's how you're going to want to use your rotation during Siphon. Now, Siphon will come back up fairly quickly, but there is a bit of downtime where you don't have Leech available to activate the Siphon buff. So during that time, what you're going to want to focus on is using Bombardment and Rupture. Now, if you remember, we have Rupture Spect this way to decrease the cooldown of Dragoncall by 3 seconds. So anytime you're not casting one of these core abilities, you're going to want to use Rupture. Now, Rupture will only proc off of our Wingstorm hits. It'll become available for use, or a Bombardment over here. So whenever Bombardment crits, you can see upon critical, we'll be able to use Rupture. Bombardment will also decrease cooldown of Dragoncall, but only while we're siphoned. So basically, outside of the Siphon rotation, we're going to look to use Bombardment and Rupture to get Dragoncall back off cooldown. Dragoncall is your top priority skill at all times. Anytime Dragoncall is not on cooldown, you want to cast it. And then once you get back to the Leech rotation, you want to follow this rotation you see on the bottom of the screen. Once that's over, you're going to fill with Bombardment and Rupture. Now, don't forget, we also have Mantra. This will allow us to regen instantly 3 focus, and then an additional 15 focus over 5 seconds. So during this time, you can activate Mantra, and then you'll be able to spam Bombardment pretty heavily. My ping isn't quite high enough to spam it, but you can see as we cast Bombardment, it costs quite a bit of focus. But once we get Mantra up, we can pretty much continuously cast Bombardment as long as we have the buff up without worrying about focus. Another big benefit will be your weapon, of course. If it has a high focus proc, the better the weapon you have. Just gaining focus without having to cast your left mouse button skill and just spamming Bombardment will be great. If you can, if you have a high enough crit, you want to alternate back and forth between Bombardment and Rupture. Every time Rupture comes up, that's your biggest one you want to hit. Not only does it do more damage than Bombardment, but it also reduces the cooldown by 3 seconds on Dragoncall, while Bombardment will only reduce the cooldown by 1, and that's only if you're siphoned. If you're at a lower gear level, personally, I recommend using your V, Wingstorm, while you're out of Siphon, because you won't quite get back to Leech as quickly with very low crit amounts. But as you get much higher and much better gear, you will get to the point where you get pretty close to being able to cast Leech pretty close to each other. You'll have constant resets from Dragoncall casts. Like I said, it does decrease cooldown Leech by 1 second every time it hits. And with the Hong Moon skill, you're getting 2 off almost every single time you cast it. So your Leech will be coming up real quick. And during that time, you'll be able to do the rotation. And then outside the rotation, you'll do Rupture, Bombardment. And like I said, I recommend using Wingstorm during that rotation, because you won't be able to generate as much focus, you won't have as many crits, stuff like that. So yeah, it's pretty straightforward rotation. This is the higher ping rotation that people like to use if you can't quite handle the other rotation, which is the Dragon Helix rotation, which I will go over in another video. But I figured I'd start with this one. It's a pretty straightforward rotation. It looks really cool too. You got tons of dragons coming out. Once you get that skill book though, it'll feel amazing. So work to try to farm that skill book, make the money to get it, whatever you gotta do. This makes the rotation here and makes the class really come together and feel great. So as usual, you guys have any questions, please leave them below the video. If I did anything wrong, or if it looks like why didn't I do this or that, let me know. Like I said, I will link the Hong Moon level 1 and a Hong Moon level 5 build below. The Hong Moon level 5 build is pretty much standing in some more defensive, so it's not super important. But get that skill book. That's the biggest thing right now. But if you guys don't have any questions, I'll see you guys later.